It was a quiet evening when Kira first noticed him. He was new, no one had seen him around before. The moment he walked into the room, there was something about him that caught her attention. It wasn't his looks, though he was handsome in a way that couldn't be ignored. No, it was something else, something deeper. There was a sense of calm around him, an aura that seemed to make everything else around him fade into the background. Kira had always been the curious type, but today, something was different. She couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the way his eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail, without looking at anything for too long. Or perhaps it was the way he carried himself, confident, but not arrogant, like someone who had seen the world and understood it in ways most people never would. She couldn't stop staring. While she tried to act normal, she wasn't one to get easily distracted, but this was different. She was sitting near the edge of the room, her notebook open, but forgotten as her focus shifted to him. He walked across the room with slow, deliberate steps, each one purposeful. As though he already knew exactly where he was headed, Kira found herself holding her breath. It was strange. It was as if he was moving through the world in a way that no one else could. Then, without warning, he turned and caught her looking. Their eyes met. Kira quickly looked away, her heart racing. She hadn't meant to stare so blatantly. She was trying to focus on her work, but something about him made it almost impossible. She glanced back at him. This time, his expression was unreadable. It was like he was studying her, just as much as she had been studying him. The tension in the air grew thick, and Kira's curiosity flared. Who was this guy? Why did he feel different from everyone else? And more importantly, why couldn't she shake the feeling that there was something more to him than he was letting on? It wasn't long before their paths crossed again. She was walking through the hallway when she saw him standing near a window, gazing outside. He didn't notice her at first. Kira hesitated for a moment, then decided to take a chance. "Hey," she called out, trying to sound casual. He turned slowly, as though he had been expecting her. His eyes met hers again, and this time, Kira didn't look away. He didn't smile, but there was a subtle shift in his expression, something that made Kira's heart race again. "Hello," he said, his voice calm, almost soothing. "You're Kira, right?" She blinked in surprise. "Yes, I am. How did you know? I've been keeping an eye on you," he said, his words so calm that it almost sounded like he was joking, but Kira wasn't sure. There was something in his tone that didn't seem entirely playful. She raised an eyebrow, trying to make sense of what he was saying. "Keeping an eye on me? Why?" The man stepped closer, and Kira could feel the space between them close up. "Because you're different," he said softly. "I noticed you the moment I walked in." Kira's curiosity spiked, and she felt her excitement rise. He wasn't like the others. There was something special about him, something that drew her in. But at the same time, there was a growing sense of caution in her mind. What did he mean by keeping an eye on her? She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but she couldn't deny that a part of her wanted to know more. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, her voice a little more guarded now. He smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that put people at ease. It was a knowing smile, as though he knew something that she didn't. "Let's just say I've been following you for a while," he said, his voice lowering slightly. "I've been interested in what makes you tick." Kira felt her heart skip a beat. "That's kind of creepy," she replied, but her voice didn't have the usual edge of annoyance that would come with hearing something like that. Instead, she felt intrigued, almost like a part of her wanted him to explain himself further. The man didn't react the way she expected. Instead of looking apologetic or trying to explain himself away, he simply nodded, as if he'd expected her reaction. "I understand why you might think that, but trust me when I say, I mean you no harm. I'm just curious. You have a certain energy about you." Kira's curiosity piqued even more. What did he mean by that? Energy? Was he talking about her personality, or was there something else he was referring to? Before she could ask more, he turned and glanced out the window again. "I think we have a lot more to talk about, but not here. This place is not the right setting for a conversation like the one we need to have." Kira's mind raced. What conversation? The man's gaze shifted back to her. "The one that will answer all your questions about me and about you." Kira felt a shiver run down her spine. There was a promise in his words, something she couldn't quite put her finger on, but she felt it deep inside her. The story of her life was about to take an unexpected turn, and she wasn't sure whether she should be excited or scared. Kira didn't know why, but she followed him. The strange man, whose name she still didn't know, had caught her in a web of curiosity that she couldn't seem to escape. The way he spoke, the look in his eyes, and the strange feeling that something was about to change made it impossible to resist. He led her down a narrow corridor, far from the crowded hallway she was used to. The walls were dimly lit, the kind of lighting that made the shadows stretch unnaturally long. Kira's heart beat faster with each step. She wasn't afraid, not exactly, but there was a sense of unease that she couldn't ignore. It felt like she was stepping into something unknown, something dangerous, but also something that held the promise of answers. So, Kira said, trying to break the tension, "What's this all about? You've been following me, but you won't tell me who you are." The man walked beside her, his stride purposeful and steady. "I'm someone who's been watching for a long time," he said without looking at her. "I've been looking for someone who is unique, someone who sees the world a little differently." Kira frowned, feeling a mix of confusion and curiosity. "What do you mean by sees the world differently?" He stopped in front of a door, his fingers hovering over the handle for a moment before he spoke again. "It's not something that can be explained in a few words," he said, his voice lower now. "It's something you need to experience for yourself." The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. It was nothing like the rest of the building, a strange mix of high-tech gadgets, unfamiliar screens, and odd symbols on the walls. The air was thick with the smell of something metallic and electric, a faint hum vibrating in the background. Kira's heart skipped a beat. The room was unlike anything she'd ever seen before. "Come in," the man said, stepping aside to let her enter. Kira hesitated for a moment, but then stepped inside. She couldn't help it. Her curiosity was too strong. The need to understand what was happening to overwhelming. She had to know what this man was about, why he was so interested in her. "Who are you?" Kira asked again, her voice more forceful. This time, "Why did you bring me here?" The man closed the door behind them with a soft click. "My name is not important right now, but if you must know, call me Marcus." "Marcus," she repeated, testing the name on her tongue. It didn't sound familiar, but there was something about it that felt strange, like it didn't belong in this world. She shook the thought away. "I brought you here," Marcus continued, "because you have something inside of you, something I've been searching for. You are different from others." Kira shook her head, not fully understanding what he meant. "I'm not special," she replied, more to herself than to him. "I'm just a regular person." Marcus didn't seem to hear her. Instead, he moved to a control panel on the far wall, his fingers flying over the buttons with practiced ease. The screens lit up, and Kira could make out images flashing on the monitor: spaceships, planets, strange landscapes that looked both alien and familiar at the same time. "I've been studying you for a long time, Kira," Marcus said, his voice low, "and I know that you have the potential to be part of something far bigger than anything you've ever imagined. You're not just a regular person, you're—" Before he could finish, one of the screens flickered, showing a picture of her. Kira froze, her breath catching in her throat as she saw the image on the screen, her face, her eyes. But it wasn't a simple picture. It was as if the screen was scanning her, analyzing her down to the smallest detail. She could almost feel the data being taken in, though she didn't know how. "What is that?" Kira asked, her voice trembling. "Now, why is my picture on the screen?" "That's the beginning of the truth," Marcus said, his eyes fixed on the monitor. "You have something inside of you that makes you unique, something that others have been looking for, and now they know you exist." Kira felt a chill run down her spine. "Who are they? Who's looking for me?" Marcus turned, his face serious now. "A group of people, not people, really beings, beings who are not of this world. And they know about you. They've known about you for a long time, but they didn't know where you were, until now." Kira's head spun. This was too much. Too fast. Aliens, beings not from this world. It felt insane, but there was something in Marcus's voice, something in the way he said it, that made her believe him. She didn't understand it, but she felt it in her bones. She opened her mouth to say something, but Marcus raised a hand, silencing her. "Listen to me carefully," he said, his voice sharp. "You're in danger, Kira. They'll be coming for you soon, but I can protect you. I can help you understand what's going on, but only if you trust me." The words hit her like a punch. She wasn't sure if she could trust him, but something inside her told her that he was the only one who could give her the answers she desperately needed. She had no choice but to go along with it. Kira looked at Marcus, her eyes steady. I'll trust you, but you have to tell me everything. Everything about who you are, what's going on, and why they're looking for me. A small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of Marcus's lips. I knew you'd say that. And then, for the first time, Marcus seemed to let down his guard. He stepped closer to her, his face softening. The truth, Kira, is far stranger than you could ever imagine. But before we go any further, there's something you need to know about yourself, something that you won't believe until you see it with your own eyes. Kira felt a thrill of excitement and fear. She was already into deep. There was no turning back now. Kira's mind raced as Marcus led her further into the room, his expression growing more serious. The flashing lights on the screen seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heart, their glow casting strange shadows on the walls. She felt as if she was standing on the edge of something massive, something that was about to change her life forever. What do you mean? Something I need to know about myself? Kira asked, her voice barely a whisper, a mix of fear and anticipation hanging in the air. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to a large console in the center of the room. The console had an array of strange symbols and glowing buttons, none of which Kira recognized. He pressed one of the buttons, and the entire room seemed to hum with energy, a low, vibrating sound that made her teeth tingle. Do you know how to access your potential? He asked, his back to her as he worked the controls. I'm not talking about the potential you see every day, your intelligence, your skills, the things you've learned in school. I mean your real potential, the kind that lies dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Kira frowned, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. I don't know what you mean. I'm just a normal person. I don't have anything special about me. Marcus turned to face her, his eyes dark with intensity. That's what you think, but that's not true. You've always had something deep inside of you, and now it's time to unlock it. Before Kira could ask what he meant, the console let out a soft beep, and a series of holographic images appeared in the air before her. They flickered and shifted, showing images of different planets, strange symbols, and people beings who looked nothing like humans. Some had pale, luminescent skin, others had features that seemed to shift and change with the light. Kira blinked in disbelief, unsure of what she was seeing. The images were alien. These are the beings I mentioned, Marcus explained, his voice grave. The ones who've been searching for you. And those are the things they'll do to get to you. They won't stop until they have you. Kira's breath caught in her throat. Why? Why do they want me? Marcus's gaze softened, but there was still a sharp edge to his voice. Because you're not just human, Kira. You're something more. You have a connection to them, to the stars. You have powers that are beyond anything you've ever imagined. Powers that were passed down to you. The words didn't make sense. Kira's head spun, and she staggered back, shaking her head in disbelief. Powers? How could she have powers? She was just an ordinary girl, studying for exams, struggling with her everyday problems. There was no way she could be special. I don't understand, she said, her voice trembling. What powers? What are you talking about? Marcus sighed, his expression hardening again. It's hard to explain, but I'll show you. He stepped forward, his hand outstretched. Take my hand, Kira. Trust me. For a moment, Kira hesitated. She was terrified. Everything she thought she knew about the world was crumbling. And yet, something deep inside her pushed her forward. She knew she had no other choice but to go with him. Slowly, her hand reached out and touched his. The instant her fingers made contact with his skin, a jolt of energy shot through her, unlike anything she had ever felt. It wasn't like an electric shock, but more like a wave of warmth, a strange, deep sensation that filled her chest and head. Her vision blurred, as she felt as if the room was spinning around her. Suddenly, she was somewhere else. Kira gasped, her surroundings changing in an instant. The dimly lit room vanished, replaced by a vast, endless sky. She could see stars, so many stars filling the space above her. But they weren't like the stars she had seen from Earth. These stars were brighter, closer, and they seemed to shimmer with a strange, otherworldly glow. It felt as though she was floating among them, weightless, like she was part of the universe itself. She spun around, trying to make sense of what was happening. The stars weren't just faraway dots in the sky. They were alive, Each one seemed to pulse with a rhythm, as if it was breathing. Kira reached out instinctively, and her hand brushed against the closest star. The moment she touched it, a surge of warmth filled her entire body. It was as if the energy of the star was flowing through her veins. She gasped in awe and fear as the sensation grew stronger, the stars responding to her touch. The sky around her seemed to swirl, and suddenly she was standing on solid ground. The landscape before her was alien, unfamiliar, yet there was something strangely comforting about it. The sky was a deep shade of purple, with swirling clouds that seemed to shift and dance in the wind. The ground beneath her feet was smooth, almost like glass, and the air smelled fresh, different from anything she had ever known. What is this place?" Kira whispered, her voice trembling. "This is the space between worlds." Marcus's voice echoed around her, though he wasn't physically there. "It's where your true power lies. This is where you come from. This is where the connection between you and those beings begins." Kira felt her knees buckle beneath her, and she collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by the experience. Her mind couldn't grasp the enormity of what was happening. She had always felt like something was missing in her life, like she didn't belong. But this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. As she sat there, her hands trembling, Marcus's voice filled her mind once more. "This is your awakening, Kira. You've just touched the surface. There's so much more to you, to this world, than you can possibly understand right now. But I'll help you. I'll show you everything." Kira squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the chaos in her mind. When she opened them again, the alien landscape was gone. She was back in the small room with Marcus, still holding his hand, her body still tingling with the remnants of the strange, overwhelming energy. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stared at him, her breath shallow. "What just happened? What did you do to me?" Marcus looked at her with a gentle but serious expression. "I just showed you what's inside of you, Kira, and now we need to prepare for the real battle. They'll come for you soon, and when they do, you'll have to be ready." The weight of his words settled heavily on her shoulders, but something else began to stir within her, a new sense of purpose, a fire that hadn't been there before. She wasn't just Kira anymore. She was something more, something that had been hidden for too long. And now she was ready to face whatever was coming for her. Kira's mind buzzed, her body still trembling from the strange experience. The room around her felt somehow smaller, as though the walls were closing in, and yet she couldn't shake the sense that the universe had suddenly expanded. She had been shown a part of herself she never knew existed, and now she was expected to believe that the beings Marcus spoke of were coming for her. She wasn't sure if she was ready for any of it. She was still trying to process the impossible, but the reality of her situation settled in with undeniable force. "I don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "Why are they after me? What do they want?" Marcus stepped back, running, a hand through his dark hair. The tension in the air around him was palpable, and Kira noticed the subtle change in his posture. It was like he was preparing for something, though she wasn't sure what. His usual calm demeanor had shifted into something more guarded, more urgent. "They want to control you, Kira," Marcus replied, his voice low and serious. "You are a key to something they need, something that could give them unimaginable power. The power to move between worlds, to bend the fabric of reality itself, and they know that you can unlock it. That's why they'll stop at nothing to get you." Kira's head spun as she tried to process this new information. "I don't want any of that. I don't want to be part of their plan. I'm just a regular person." Marcus's eyes softened for a moment, but his words remained firm. "You're not just a regular person anymore, Kira. You've been awakened. You're the last link in a chain of events that's been building for centuries. The beings who are coming for you, they know exactly what you are capable of, and that's why they won't stop until they have you." Kira's pulse quickened at the thought of them, those beings, those powerful creatures who could control the stars themselves. The way Marcus spoke about them, the certainty in his voice, made it clear that this wasn't some fantasy. These beings were real, and they were coming for her. "I don't know what to do," Kira murmured, her hands wringing in nervousness. "I'm not ready for this." Marcus stepped toward her, his hand reaching out to gently touch her shoulder. "I'll help you. I won't let them take you, but you need to listen to me, Kira. You can't keep running from what you are. You need to learn how to harness your power, how to control it." Kira looked up at him, her heart filled with both fear and something else, something that felt like a spark of determination. "But how do I do that? I don't even know where to start. Marcus smiled slightly, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. You're not alone in this. I've been training for years, preparing for this moment. I know how to guide you, but it won't be easy. You need to push yourself in ways you never thought possible. The power inside you is vast, Kira, and only when you understand it, when you can control it, will you be able to protect yourself. The words hung in the air between them, and Kira couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Despite everything, despite the chaos swirling around her, Marcus was right about one thing. There was a power inside of her, a power that had been awakened, and it was something she had to learn to control if she was going to survive. What do I need to do? She asked, her voice stronger now, the initial fear giving way to a quiet, resolve. Marcus took a deep breath, as though weighing his next words carefully. We'll begin with training, but not here, not in this place. It's too dangerous. We need to leave, and we need to leave now. Kira's heart sank. Leave? Where will we go? There's a place, Marcus replied, his tone serious, a hidden sanctuary, a safe place where you can learn and train without the threat of them finding us. But it's far. We'll need to move quickly. Before Kira could respond, she heard a loud thump, distant, but unmistakable. It was the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. Her body tensed at the sound, her instinct screaming that something was wrong. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He didn't speak, but the look on his face told Kira everything she needed to know. They were here. Without another word, Marcus grabbed Kira's hand, pulling her toward the far side of the room. The walls, which had once seemed so solid, now felt like they were closing in on her, and panic began to rise in her chest. She had no idea what was happening, but she knew one thing for sure: she had no time to think. They were coming, and they weren't going to stop. Marcus moved with urgency, typing a series of commands into the console. The humming in the room grew louder, and Kira felt the floor beneath her vibrate as if the entire building was shifting. A sudden rush of wind swept through the room, and Kira felt her hair whip around her face. What's happening? Kira gasped, her heart pounding. Get ready, Marcus said, his voice sharp. We're leaving, now. In an instant, the room began to dissolve around her, like the walls were melting away, revealing a glowing tunnel of light. It was like being pulled through a vortex, and Kira instinctively grabbed Marcus's hand tighter, feeling the pull of the energy round them. The sensation was overwhelming, like falling, but with no ground beneath her. The world around her warped and twisted as they moved through the tunnel, and Kira squeezed her eyes shut, trying to steady herself. She didn't know how long they traveled, but eventually the sensation of falling slowed and the tunnel opened, up to reveal a new world. Kira opened her eyes, and the sight before her made her gasp. They had arrived. It wasn't Earth. It wasn't anything she had ever seen before. They stood on a cliff, the air cool and crisp around them. The sky above was a deep shade of purple, with swirling clouds that looked like they were alive. Strange, glowing plants dotted the landscape, and the ground was smooth, almost metallic. This is it, Marcus said, his voice quiet, reverent. This is the sanctuary. Kira stood in awe, her breath taken away by the beauty of the place. But as she looked around, a sense of dread settled over her. They weren't safe yet. The beings who had been chasing her were still out there, and they would find her eventually. But for now, they were safe, and this was just the beginning. Kira knew, deep down, that the journey ahead would be unlike anything she could have imagined. She would learn to harness her power, learn what she was truly capable of, and face the darkness that was coming for her. But right now, all she could do was stand there and breathe in the air of this strange, alien world, feeling the weight of everything that was to come. And for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose, a flicker of hope. The fight had only just begun. The air was thick with the strange scent of the alien world, a mixture of something floral and metallic that seemed to linger on the edge of Kira's senses. As the landscape stretched before her, she felt both overwhelmed and invigorated. This was where she had to be. She realized this was where her journey had truly begun, and now she had no choice but to face what was coming. Marcus had led her into a small, crystalline structure that appeared to rise from the ground like a jagged spire of glass. Inside, the space was vast, though it didn't seem to have any clear walls. Instead, the entire space shimmered with the same kind of energy Kira had felt back in the small room. Everything seemed alive in this place: the walls, the air, even the floor beneath her feet. Sit, Marcus instructed, his tone soft but firm. He gestured to a flat surface in the center of the room. Kira obeyed, sitting down cross-legged as he moved to a nearby console. His hands hovered over the interface, fingers moving with practiced precision. "What is this place?" Kira asked, her voice still uncertain. She couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here, that everything was moving too fast. "This is the heart of the sanctuary," Marcus replied without looking at her. "It's a place built to help those like you, those who have a power beyond their understanding. We'll train here until you're ready to face what's coming, until you're ready to unlock your full potential." Kira swallowed, her mind racing, unlocking her full potential. But what did that even mean? How could she control something that had only just been revealed to her? "I still don't understand what's happening," she admitted. "What exactly am I supposed to be learning? How am I supposed to control this power?" Marcus turned to face her, his eyes dark with intent. "You've already felt a glimpse of it," he said, "when you touched the star, when the universe itself responded to your presence. That's the kind of power you have inside of you. It's tied to the fabric of reality itself. You can manipulate energy, matter, even space and time if you learn to control it. But right now, you don't know how to use it, and that's why we're here." Kira stared at him, trying to comprehend what he was saying. She had never imagined that something like this was possible. Manipulating energy, space, time, it sounded like something out of a science fiction novel. But the truth was, she had felt it. She had touched the stars, and they had responded to her. She wasn't sure how, but she had been a part of something far greater than she could understand. "I don't know if I can do this," she said, her voice wavering with uncertainty. "What if I fail? What if I can't control it?" Marcus walked over to her, his footsteps echoing softly against the smooth floor. He knelt down in front of her, his gaze steady. "Everyone feels that way when they first start. I did, but failure isn't the end, Kira. It's part of the process. It's through failure that we learn, grow, and eventually succeed." Kira bit her lip, her fingers fidgeting nervously in her lap. The pressure was building. The weight of everything was starting to sink in. She didn't know if she was ready for this, if she could even handle it. Marcus must have seen the doubt in her eyes. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch warm and grounding. "I'm not going to let you fail. You're not alone in this, but you have to trust me. You have to trust yourself." Kira nodded, trying to calm the rising storm of panic inside her. She had no choice but to trust him. There was no turning back now. Marcus stood up, his expression resolute. "The first thing we need to do is teach you how to focus. You need to learn how to connect with your energy, how to feel it in your body. It's already there, Kira. You just have to learn to channel it." He extended his hand to her, and this time, Kira didn't hesitate. She reached out, taking his hand. The moment their skin touched, she felt it again, the hum of energy, deep and constant. It was inside her, just waiting to be unlocked. It was overwhelming, but also strangely comforting. "Close your eyes," Marcus instructed. "Focus on your breathing, in and out. Calm your mind. Let everything go. Forget the world around you. Focus only on the energy that's inside of you." Kira did as he said, her breath slow and steady. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the constant noise in her mind. She focused on the feeling of the energy. The subtle hum that seemed to vibrate through her veins died at first. Nothing happened. She felt nothing more than a faint buzz, an echo of the power she had felt before. But Marcus's hand remained steady, and his calm presence helped her focus. She took another deep breath, this time more intentionally. Then something shifted. The hum inside her began to grow louder, stronger, more present. Kira felt it moving through her, flowing like a current just beneath her skin. It was like the world around her was fading, and all she could focus on was the energy inside her, the power that was starting to rise. "Good," Marcus's voice cut through her concentration, low and encouraging. "Now, try to move it. Visualize it. Imagine it flowing from your core, moving through your limbs, out into your hands. Feel it as if it's a part of you." Kira hesitated, but then she extended her hand, imagining the energy moving through her like a wave. She pictured it moving from her chest, down her arm, into her hand. At first, it felt like nothing more than a slight warmth. But then, the warmth began to intensify. She opened her eyes just in time to see a soft, glowing light flicker at her fingertips. Kira gasped and pulled her hand back, startled. The light disappeared almost as soon as it had appeared. "Don't be afraid," Marcus said, his voice calm but insistent. "That was the first step. You just made the connection. Now, we need to strengthen it. You have to focus." Kira looked down at her hands, still tingling from the sensation. She couldn't believe it. She had actually done something for the first time. She felt the barest hint of control over the power that had been dormant inside her. "I did it," she whispered, almost to herself. Marcus smiled, his expression proud. "Yes, you did. Now, we keep going. That's only the beginning. The more you practice, the more control you'll have. And when you're ready, we'll move on to the next stage." Kira nodded, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration flooding through her. She wasn't sure how much more she could take, but one thing was certain: she had taken the first step. She had started to unlock her true potential, and there was no turning back now. Marcus looked at her, his gaze intense. "This is just the beginning, Kira. You have the power to change everything, but first, you need to learn to control it." And with that, the training began. Each day, Kira pushed herself further. There were moments of doubt, moments when she thought she couldn't go on, but Marcus was always there, guiding her, pushing her to dig deeper. The journey was long, but with every step, Kira could feel herself becoming stronger. She wasn't the same person who had walked into that sanctuary a few days ago. She was becoming something else, something far greater than she had ever imagined. Kira's training had intensified over the past few weeks. Every day, she pushed herself harder, practicing control over her energy, trying to master the strange, cosmic power that flowed through her veins. Some days, she felt like she was on the verge of breaking, but Marcus was always there, guiding her, encouraging her, and reminding her of the bigger picture. Slowly, she was starting to feel the strength inside her, though it was still just a flicker compared to the full potential. She could feel in the back of her mind the sanctuary had become her home, this strange, alien place where the sky was purple, the air was thick with mystery, and the ground seemed to hum with life. Marcus had taught her the basics: breathing exercises to focus her mind, techniques to harness her energy, and ways to manipulate small objects. At first, it had been little things: a glowing orb of energy in her hand, a small rock floating a few inches off the ground, but now she could feel the power stirring inside her, urging her to push further. And now, Marcus had taken her to a new part of the sanctuary, a high cliff overlooking an expanse of glowing fields. The terrain here was jagged, with large rocks protruding from the ground and a faint mist rolling over the landscape. The sky stretched out in every direction, stars twinkling in a way that almost felt too close, like she could reach out and touch them. "Today is different," Marcus said, his tone grave. He stood beside her, staring out over the fields. "You've made significant progress in the last few weeks, Kira, but today, we move beyond the basics. Today, you make a choice." Kira felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't like the sound of that. "A choice?" she echoed. "What do you mean?" Marcus turned to her, his expression serious, his eyes unwavering. "You've been learning to control the energy, to manipulate it, but now, you have to decide how far you're willing to go. There's a point where control alone isn't enough. There's a line you have to cross if you want to fully realize your power." Kira's heart skipped a beat. She had known there was more to this than just training, but she hadn't expected it to come so soon. She was still trying to get the hang of things, still learning the basics. How could she be expected to make a choice now? "What happens if I can't make this choice?" she asked, her voice small. Marcus's gaze softened. "If you don't choose, if you don't fully embrace what you are, you risk losing everything. The energy inside you will remain untapped, dormant. You'll never be able to protect yourself from the beings who are coming. They'll find you, and you won't be able to fight back." Kira's breath caught in her throat. The thought of those beings, the ones who had been chasing her, still terrified her. She had no idea how to stop them. How could she fight something like that? They had powers beyond anything she could comprehend. "What choice do I have?" she asked, her voice breaking. Marcus stepped closer to her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "The choice is whether to accept your destiny. You were born for this, Kira. You're not just a random person in the universe. You're a bridge between worlds, a being with the power to reshape reality itself. But with that power comes a responsibility." Kira's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. She had always felt like there was something more to her life, something that she couldn't quite understand. But this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. She wasn't sure if she was ready to take on such a huge responsibility. Could she really change the course of the universe? Could she wield the kind of power that Marcus was describing? I don't know if I can do this, she admitted, her voice full of doubt. What if I make the wrong choice? Marcus's eyes softened, and he took a deep breath. There is no wrong choice, Kira. This isn't about good or evil. It's about accepting who you are and what you're capable of. You'll make mistakes, but that's part of the journey. The key is to trust yourself. Kira stood there, staring out over the field, trying to process everything. The weight of her decision was almost unbearable. She had the power to shape reality itself, to stop the beings who were hunting her, but she wasn't sure if she was ready for such a burden. A cold breeze swept over the cliff, rustling her hair. She closed her eyes, letting the wind blow through her, trying to clear her mind. The world around her seemed to pause for a moment, and in that stillness, she felt a spark inside her. It was a faint flicker, but it was there a reminder that she wasn't alone in this. The power inside her was real, and it was waiting for her to take control of it. I'm scared, she whispered, barely audible. Marcus's voice was steady and reassuring. Fear is natural, but fear is also a sign that you're alive. You've already come so far, Kira. Now it's time to step into who you were always meant to be. Kira took a deep breath. She wasn't sure what would happen if she made this choice, but deep down, she knew that she couldn't keep running from her destiny. The beings who were after her wouldn't stop. She would have to face them eventually, and the only way to do that was to embrace the power inside her. I choose to accept my destiny, she said, her voice strong despite the doubt that still lingered in her chest. Marcus nodded, a small, approving smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Good. Now, we begin the final step, the true awakening. He stepped back, raising his arms toward the sky. The energy around them seemed to intensify, the ground vibrating beneath their feet. Kira could feel it, the raw power of the universe swirling around them, just waiting to be tapped into. It was overwhelming, but she didn't pull away. She stepped forward, her hands raised as well, ready to accept the next stage of her training. Marcus's voice echoed in the air, reverberating with power. Now, Kira, open yourself to the full extent of your power. Let it flow through you. Embrace it. Become one with it. Kira closed her eyes, her heart pounding. She felt the energy begin to rise inside her, a flood of warmth and light surging through her. It was like being consumed by the universe itself. But instead of fear, she felt a strange sense of peace. She wasn't alone anymore. She was connected to something far bigger than herself. The energy around her grew stronger, crackling in the air. The ground beneath her feet began to shift, and the sky above them pulsed with light. Kira felt it, deep inside of her. She had unlocked something immense, something powerful. The final step had begun, and Kira was ready. In this part, Kira makes a choice that will define the course of her future. The journey to embrace her true potential begins, but with it comes the pressure of knowing that she must now face the challenge of controlling this newfound power to prepare for the beings who seek to control her. Kira stood on the edge of the cliff, her arms still raised, the energy around her crackling and shimmering with an intensity she had never felt before. It was like the entire universe was bending to her will, every molecule of the air vibrating. With raw potential, she felt a sense of power, of freedom, but also a deep weight. The power she had unlocked inside her was immense, more than she had ever dreamed possible. But with that power came responsibility. She had made her choice, embraced her destiny. But she knew that wasn't the end. The beings Marcus had warned her about, those who sought to control her, to exploit her power, were still out there. They would come for her, and when they did, she needed to be ready. The energy around her began to settle, the crackling fading into a low hum as she focused on controlling it. She had to learn to channel this power without letting it consume her. It was too easy to feel overwhelmed by the force of it, too easy to let it slip through her fingers like sand. Marcus's voice broke through her concentration. Kira, you've done well, but now, we need to test your limits. You're ready for the next phase. Kira lowered her arms slowly, her heart still pounding in her chest. She felt alive, but also exhausted, like she had just run a marathon without stopping. She turned to Marcus, her eyes wide. What's the next phase? I don't know if I can do more than this. Marcus looked at her with a deep, knowing expression. You've done more than you realize, but the true test comes when you face them. You need to be able to use your power in the real world, Kira, not just in the sanctuary. She nodded slowly, understanding the weight of what he was saying. She had to be able to fight, to defend herself. There was no time left for training in the safety of the sanctuary. The beings who sought her power were coming. They had to be. And just as the thought crossed her mind, there was a sudden, sharp crackle in the air. The sky above them flickered with dark clouds, and a chill ran through Kira's body. Something was wrong. It felt as though the very atmosphere around her had shifted. Marcus stiffened, his expression hardening. They're here, Kira's breath caught in her throat as she looked around, her heart hammering in her chest. She had expected the confrontation eventually, but she had no idea it would happen so soon. She had thought she had more time to train, to grow stronger. They'll be looking for you, Marcus said, his voice grave. We need to move quickly, without another word. Marcus grabbed Kira's arm, pulling her toward the edge of the sanctuary. The ground beneath them shifted again, and Kira felt the familiar pull of the energy, guiding them as they moved toward an underground passageway. Kira could hear the distant sound of something huge moving through the air like the beat of wings or something far more menacing. The air was thick with the hum of their presence. They had arrived. Who are they? Kira asked, her voice breathless with fear. They are the ones who've been searching for you, Marcus replied, urgency creeping into his tone. They come from another dimension, a realm far beyond our understanding, and they know what you are. Kira's stomach tightened. She hadn't fully understood the implications of Marcus's words before, but now she did. They were beings from another realm, powerful, ancient, and they wanted her. They wanted her power. The underground passage was narrow, the walls pulsating with a strange energy that seemed to respond to their movements. The air grew colder as they moved deeper, and Kira could hear the sound of distant footsteps echoing off the walls. She didn't know what to expect, but she had to trust Marcus. He had gotten them this far. As they reached the end of the passage, Marcus turned to face her. His eyes were serious, but there was a glimmer of determination in them. This is it, Kira. We're going to face them, but you have to be ready. This is your moment to prove what you've learned. Kira nodded, trying to steady her breathing. She felt the energy inside her again, the same hum she had felt earlier, only now it was sharper, more focused. It was as if the energy was alive inside her, waiting for her to unleash it. She couldn't hold back, not now. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm. Trust yourself, trust your instincts. You have the power to fight back, but you have to believe in it. Before Kira could respond, the ground beneath them shook. A loud, guttural growl echoed from the tunnel ahead, and Kira's heart skipped a beat. The beings were close to close. They're coming, Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with an edge of urgency. Get ready, Kira. Suddenly, the tunnel ahead lit up with a blinding, cold light. Shapes began to emerge from the darkness, figures moving quickly, their forms shifting and changing with every step. Kira couldn't make out their features. They were too fast, too fluid, but she could feel their presence. They were unlike anything she had ever seen before. Her pulse quickened. She was afraid, but something inside her pushed back the fear. She had trained for this. She had unlocked the power inside her. She could do this. Without thinking, Kira raised her hands, focusing on the energy within her. The air around her shimmered, and a wave of force exploded outward. The ground cracked beneath her as the energy shot out, pushing the first of the shadowy figures back. They stumbled, but then regained their balance, closing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. More power, Marcus shouted, his voice commanding. Channel the energy. Kira closed her eyes, breathing deeply. She could feel the power inside her again, the wave of energy that had been dormant for so long. She reached deep within, feeling the force of the universe at her fingertips. It was vast, infinite, and it was hers to command. With a shout, Kira released the energy once more, but this time, it wasn't just a wave. It was a burst of pure, raw force. The air vibrated with the power as it shot out, the energy crackling like lightning. The figures before her faltered, their forms flickering under the intensity of her attack. For a moment, everything was still. Then, one of the beings, tall, dark, and shifting like smoke, stepped forward. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and Kira could feel its gaze piercing through her. She could feel its power, its hunger. You are the one, it said in a voice that was not quite human, its tone echoing with an unnatural resonance. You are the one who can change everything. Kira's heart raced as she faced the being. She wasn't sure if she was ready, if she had the strength to defeat them. But there was no turning back now. She had made her choice, and now she had to stand and fight. With a deep breath, she raised her hands once more. The energy swirled. Around her, an unstoppable force of nature. She wasn't going down without a fight.